Dorothy May's weathered hands trembled as she held the DNA test results. The paper shook like autumn leaves in her grip. Marcus stood frozen, his expensive suit wrinkled from kneeling beside her hospital bed. "Negative," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass. "After all these years, you ain't my blood." But then she looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much pain, too much hope, and said the words that would change everything. "But honey, sometimes family ain't about blood. It's about who stays when the whole world walks away." That's when Marcus realized the woman he'd almost killed with his car had just saved his soul. The morning sun painted Detroit's downtown streets in shades of gold, but Dorothy Mae Johnson didn't have time to notice beauty anymore. At 58, her back was bent like a question mark, curved from years of carrying burdens too heavy for one woman's shoulders. She pushed her rusty shopping cart down Michigan Avenue, the squeaky front wheel singing its broken song with every step. "Come on now, don't give up on me," she whispered to the cart, patting its bent metal frame like you'd comfort an old friend. Inside, aluminum cans clinked together like tiny wind chimes, each one worth 5 cents. 5 cents closer to her prescription, 5 cents closer to maybe finding her boy. Her worn sneakers, held together with duct tape and hope, slapped against the concrete. The soles were so thin she could feel every crack in the sidewalk. Dorothy May's legs were swollen something fierce today, looking like tree trunks stuffed into 2 small shoes, each step sending lightning bolts of pain shooting up to her hips. "Lord, just let me get enough today," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the morning traffic. "Just need to get enough for my medication. And save up to find my boy." The words had become her daily prayer, spoken to empty streets that never seemed to listen. Her stomach growled loud enough to embarrass her, but she ignored it. Food could wait, medicine couldn't. And somewhere out there, her son Michael was waiting too. Had been waiting for 30 long years since that terrible night when everything changed. The night when a confused little boy got separated from his mama during the chaos and never found his way home. What Dorothy Mae didn't know was that in just a few hours, fate would come screaming down Michigan Avenue in a white luxury car, and her world would turn upside down in ways she never could have imagined. By noon, Dorothy Mae had collected enough cans to fill half her cart. Her back ached something terrible, but she pushed forward one step at a time. The intersection at Michigan and 3rd was always busy, business people rushing to lunch, cars honking, everyone in such a hurry to get somewhere important. She waited for the light to change, gripping her cart handle with both hands. The green walk signal blinked on, and she started across, moving as fast as her swollen legs would carry her. That's when she heard it, the screech of tires on hot asphalt, getting closer and closer. A white Tesla came flying around the corner, way too fast for downtown traffic. The driver slammed his brakes, but it was too late. Dorothy Mae threw herself sideways, her cart tipping over like a house of cards. Aluminum cans exploded across the street, rolling and clattering in every direction. Hours of work scattered like confetti in the wind. She hit the ground hard, her shoulder taking the worst of it. Pain shot through her body like electricity, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. The world spun around her as she lay there on the hot concrete, watching her precious cans roll away. The Tesla's door slammed shut with an expensive thud. Out stepped a young man in a perfect suit, probably worth more than Dorothy Mae made in a year. Marcus Thompson was 28, handsome in that polished way that money buys, with perfectly styled hair and shoes that had never seen a puddle. "Are you kidding me right now?" Marcus shouted, his voice carrying across the intersection. "Look what you did to my car." He pointed at a tiny scratch on his bumper, his face red with anger. "Do you have any idea how much this vehicle costs?" A crowd gathered on the sidewalk, but nobody moved to help. They just stood there, watching like it was some kind of street performance. Dorothy Mae struggled to sit up, her whole body shaking. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to—" "Sorry doesn't fix paint, lady," Marcus snapped, pulling out his phone. "I should call the police right now. This is going to cost thousands to repair." What neither of them knew was that this moment, this terrible, humiliating moment, was about to change both their lives forever. Dorothy Mae struggled to her knees, ignoring the sharp pain shooting through her shoulder. Her cans were everywhere, under cars, in gutters, rolling down storm drains, like her hope was slipping away one piece at a time. Each can represented a meal she couldn't afford to lose, medicine she desperately needed. "Please, sir," she said, crawling on the hot asphalt to gather what she could. "I'll clean this up. I promise I will." Marcus stood over her, still talking on his phone with his insurance company, gesturing wildly with his free hand. That's when Dorothy May saw it, a small, crescent-shaped scar on his left index finger, right below the knuckle. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. Her breath caught in her throat. 30 years melted away like ice in summer heat, and suddenly she was back in that tiny apartment on the east side, watching her 3-year-old son Michael trying to open a can of peaches with a kitchen knife. The blade had slipped, cutting his little finger. She'd rushed him to the emergency room holding a dish towel against the wound while he cried in her arms. "Mama, it hurts," he'd whimpered, and she'd kissed his forehead, promising him it would heal and leave just a tiny mark. "Like a little moon," she'd told him. "So you'll always remember how brave you were." "How old are you, honey?" Dorothy May asked suddenly, her voice shaking. Marcus stopped mid-sentence in his phone call. "What?" "Your age, baby. How old are you?" "Lady, are you serious right now? I'm trying to deal with the damage you caused to my car, and you're asking personal questions?" Marcus shook his head, irritated. "I'm 28. Not that it's any of your business." 28. The math hit Dorothy May like a punch to the stomach. Michael would be 28 now if he was still alive. If he'd survived that terrible night when the riots tore their neighborhood apart, when smoke filled the sky and she'd lost him in the chaos of running, screaming, trying to get to safety. Something strange happened to Marcus then. Looking down at this broken woman on her knees, picking up cans like they were precious jewels, he felt an odd tug in his chest, a feeling he couldn't quite name, like a door opening in a room he'd forgotten existed. Why did her question about his age make his heart race? And why couldn't he stop staring at her weathered hands as she gathered her scattered life piece by piece? Dorothy May's hands trembled as she reached for a can that had rolled under Marcus's Tesla. The movement caused her sleeve to slide up, revealing a tarnished silver bracelet around her wrist. She quickly tried to pull her sleeve back down, but it was too late. The bracelet was simple, just a thin chain with a small heart-shaped charm that had M engraved on it. The silver had turned black in places from years of wear, but she never took it off. It was the last thing she had of her boy, the only physical reminder that he'd once existed. Marcus's phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the pavement. His face went white as paper. "Where did you get that?" he whispered, pointing at her wrist with a shaking finger. Dorothy May instinctively covered the bracelet with her other hand. "It's nothing, honey, just an old piece of jewelry." "No, no, no." Marcus shook his head, backing away from her. "That can't be possible." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. With trembling fingers, he opened it and revealed an identical silver bracelet. Same heart charm, same M engraving, just as tarnished and worn as hers. "I've had this since I was a kid," Marcus said, his voice barely audible. "The foster home said it was the only thing I had when they found me. They told me it might help me find my family someday." The two bracelets caught the afternoon sunlight, gleaming like twin stars. Dorothy May's legs gave out completely and she sank onto the curb, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. "What's your last name, baby?" she asked, tears starting to fill her eyes. "Thompson, but that's my adoptive name." Marcus sat down beside her, still staring at the bracelets. "Before that, I was just baby dough in the system. No records, no family name, nothing." "And you don't remember anything from before?" "Just dreams sometimes. A woman singing, the smell of pancakes, a voice calling for someone named..." He paused, his throat closing up. "Someone named Michael." Dorothy May let out a sob that came from somewhere deep in her soul. 30 years of searching, 30 years of wondering, 30 years of praying, and here he was right in front of her, angry and successful and alive. But could it really be him? After all this time, was it possible that the universe had brought her baby back to her in the cruelest way imaginable? 3 days later, Marcus drove Dorothy May to the medical lab downtown. They sat in silence during the short ride, both afraid to hope too much, both terrified of being disappointed again. The DNA test would take a week to come back, 7 days that would either reunite a family or break two hearts that had already been through too much. "Results will be ready next Friday," the lab technician said, sealing their samples in separate containers. "We'll call you both." Marcus walked Dorothy May back to his car, noticing how she winced with every step. Her shoulder was still hurting from the fall, and she hadn't been able to afford a doctor visit. "Miss Dorothy," he said softly, "let me take you to get that shoulder checked out." "Oh, honey, I can't afford no doctor bills," she replied, but Marcus was already driving toward the emergency room. That became their routine over the next week. Every morning, Marcus would pick up Dorothy May from her tiny motel room and take her to breakfast. Then they'd collect cans together, Marcus in his expensive suit, crawling under cars and digging through trash bins like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You don't have to do this, baby," Dorothy May told him on the third day, watching him count out her aluminum cans at the recycling center. "I want to," Marcus said, and he meant it. Something about being with her felt like coming home to a place he'd never known he was missing. In the evenings, they'd sit in her small motel room, and Dorothy May would share stories about her Michael. She showed Marcus a yellowed photograph of a chubby-cheeked little boy with serious eyes and a wooden toy truck she'd carved for his 3rd birthday. "He loved that little truck," she said, running her fingers over the worn wood. "Took it everywhere, even slept with it." Marcus held the truck in his hands, and suddenly he could smell pancakes and hear a woman's voice singing a lullaby. The memory was so vivid it made his chest tight. "Miss Dorothy," he whispered, "I think I remember this truck." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Do you really, baby? Do you really remember?" "I remember pancakes on Sunday mornings and someone singing while they cooked. A voice that sounded like—" He paused, looking at her weathered face. "A voice that sounded like home." Dorothy May reached over and took his hand. "My baby," she whispered. "My sweet, sweet baby." But they both knew that memories could lie, that hope could trick the heart. Only the test results would tell them the truth. Friday morning came like a storm cloud, heavy and full of electricity. Marcus picked up Dorothy May at 9 sharp, and they drove to the lab in complete silence. Both of them had barely slept the night before, their hearts torn between hope and fear. The receptionist handed Marcus a sealed envelope with both their names on it. His hands shook as he tore it open, Dorothy May standing so close beside him that he could feel her trembling. The words on the paper might as well have been written in fire. "DNA analysis results. No familial relationship detected. Probability of biological relationship, 0%. Dorothy May's knees buckled, and Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. She let out a cry that came from somewhere so deep it seemed to shake the entire building. 30 years of hope, 30 years of searching, 30 years of believing, all crashing down in a single moment. "No, no, no," she sobbed, her whole body shaking. "This can't be right. The scar, the bracelet, the memories." Marcus helped her to a chair, his own heart breaking as he watched her fall apart. He'd only known her for a week, but losing her felt like losing everything he'd never known he wanted. "Miss Dorothy, please don't cry," he whispered, kneeling beside her chair. "I was such a fool," she said through her tears. 30 years I've been looking for a ghost, 30 years waiting for a son who probably didn't even survive that night. I should have known better. I should have given up a long time ago." Marcus took her weathered hands in his. "Don't say that, don't you ever say that." "But honey, it's over. The test doesn't lie. You're not my Michael." "Maybe I'm not your blood son," Marcus said, his voice steady and sure. "But Miss Dorothy, in this past week, you've given me something nobody else ever has. You've given me a home. You've shown me what it feels like to matter to someone, to be worried about, to be cared for." Dorothy May looked up at him through her tears. "What are you saying, baby?" "I'm saying maybe family isn't just about DNA. Maybe it's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when the whole world walks away." Marcus squeezed her hands tighter. "You may not be my birth mother, but you're the closest thing to a mama I've ever had." "You really mean that?" "Miss Dorothy, I've been empty my whole life, and I didn't even know it until I met you. Blood or no blood, you're my family now." For the first time since hearing the results, Dorothy May smiled through her tears. "Miss Dorothy," Marcus said that same afternoon, "I want you to come live with me." Dorothy May nearly dropped her cup of coffee. They were sitting in a diner downtown, trying to process the morning's devastating news. "Baby, what are you talking about? My penthouse has 3 bedrooms. You're living in a motel room that smells like old cigarettes and broken dreams. This is crazy." "Honey, I can't do that to you. People will talk. They'll think I'm some kind of—" She paused, searching for respectful words. "They'll think I'm taking advantage of a good man." Marcus leaned across the table. "Miss Dorothy, I don't care what people think. I care about you sleeping in a real bed, eating real food, and having a real home." It took 3 days to convince her, but finally Dorothy May packed her few belongings into 2 worn grocery bags and moved into Marcus's 23rd floor apartment. The elevator ride made her dizzy, and the view from his windows took her breath away. "Lord have mercy," she whispered, looking out at the Detroit skyline. "I never been this high up in my whole life." The neighbors in the building whispered whenever they saw them together. "Who's the old woman? Why is she living with Marcus? This is so inappropriate." But Marcus didn't care. When people asked, he'd smile and say, "This is my mother, Dorothy May." They fell into a routine that felt as natural as breathing. Every morning, Dorothy May would make coffee and pancakes while Marcus got ready for work. She'd pack him a lunch like he was heading off to school, complete with a handwritten note that said things like, "Have a blessed day, my sweet boy." Evenings were for grocery shopping together, Marcus pushing the cart while Dorothy May selected vegetables like she was choosing precious gems. They'd come home and watch game shows, Dorothy May calling out answers to the TV while Marcus pretended to work on his laptop. "Family Feud is starting, baby," she'd call from the living room, and Marcus would drop everything to join her on the couch. Before bed, they'd sit together and pray, Dorothy May's weathered hands covering Marcus's smooth ones. "Lord, thank you for bringing this boy into my life," she'd whisper. "Keep him safe and help him know how much he's loved." For the first time in his adult life, Marcus understood what home really meant. Not the expensive furniture or the city view, but the sound of someone else breathing in the next room, someone who worried about him and celebrated his small victories. "Miss Dorothy," he said one evening, "I think I've been waiting my whole life for you. And I've been waiting for you too, my baby. Blood couldn't make us any more family than we already are." 6 months later, Dorothy May started forgetting things. First it was little stuff, where she put her reading glasses, what day it was. Then she'd forget to turn off the stove or take her medication. Marcus found her crying in the kitchen one morning, staring at the coffee maker like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "I don't remember how to make your coffee, baby," she whispered, her voice full of fear and confusion. Marcus's heart shattered into a million pieces. He took her to the best doctors in Detroit, spent thousands on tests and specialists. The diagnosis hit like a freight train: early-stage dementia, progressing faster than usual due to stress and years of poor nutrition. "How long?" Marcus asked the doctor in the hallway, while Dorothy May sat in the waiting room. "Could be months, could be a year, I'm sorry." Marcus hired the best nurses money could buy, but he insisted on doing most of the care himself. He'd help Dorothy May get dressed, make sure she ate every meal, and sit with her during the long afternoons when she'd drift in and out of clarity. Some days she knew him perfectly. Other days she'd look at him like he was a stranger and ask when Marcus was coming home. Those were the hardest days. On a quiet Tuesday evening, during one of her clear moments, Dorothy May called Marcus to her bedside. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a small wooden box that he'd never seen before. "Baby, I need to give you something," she said, her hands trembling as she opened the lid. Inside were treasures from a lifetime: the wooden toy truck she'd shown him, a few yellowed photographs, a hospital bracelet from when her real Michael was born, and a letter written in her shaky handwriting. "These are all the pieces of my heart that I've been carrying around for 30 years, she said softly. "But you know what? My heart ain't broken anymore, because you filled it up again." Marcus picked up the letter. It was addressed to "My son Michael, wherever you are. Read it later when I'm not here anymore," Dorothy May said. "But right now, I need you to know something important." She took his face in her weathered hands, the same way a mother touches her child's face to memorize it. "You already are my son, Marcus. Blood didn't make you mine. Love did. And I'm already your mother. Not because I gave birth to you, but because I choose you every single day." Marcus broke down completely, laying his head on her shoulder like a little boy. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, my sweet baby. More than all the stars in the sky." They held each other and cried, knowing that their time together was running out like sand through an hourglass. 3 weeks later, Dorothy May could barely keep her eyes open for more than a few minutes at a time. Marcus had moved a bed into the living room so she could see the city lights she'd grown to love. The doctors said it was just a matter of days now. That's when Marcus walked into the room with a man Dorothy May had never seen before, but somehow recognized immediately. He was tall and thin, with her same eyes and her same stubborn chin. Around his wrist was a silver bracelet identical to the ones she and Marcus wore. "Mama," the stranger said, his voice breaking on the word. "Mama, it's me. It's Michael." Dorothy May's eyes flew open wider than they had in weeks. Despite the fog of medication and illness, she knew that face. 30 years melted away, and she saw her 3-year-old boy looking back at her from a man's weathered features. "My baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My sweet baby boy." The man, Michael, who now went by James, knelt beside her bed. "Marcus found me through a private investigator. I've been looking for you my whole life, Mama, every day for 30 years. "How?" Dorothy May asked, reaching out to touch his face with trembling fingers. "I never forgot your voice," James said, "or the way you used to sing me to sleep, the foster families, the group homes. I never stopped believing you were out there somewhere, looking for me too." Marcus stood in the doorway watching this miracle unfold. He'd spent weeks tracking down every Michael Johnson who'd been in the Detroit foster system, following dead-end leads and cold trails, until finally, he'd found him working as a mechanic in Chicago. "You found my boy," Dorothy May said to Marcus, her voice full of wonder. "You brought my Michael home to me." "James," Marcus said softly, "I need you to know something. Your mama saved my life. She gave me a family when I had nothing. She loved me like her own son." James looked at Marcus with tears in his eyes. "Then that makes you my brother." Dorothy May smiled, a peace settling over her face that Marcus had never seen before. "My two boys," she said, "both of my sons, together." She held one hand out to each of them. Marcus took her left hand, James took her right, and for the first time in 30 years, Dorothy May Johnson felt complete. "I can rest now," she whispered. "My babies are home." That night, as the city lights twinkled outside the window, Dorothy May passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the love she'd searched for her entire life. Her two sons, one of blood, one of choice, sat beside her until morning, holding her hands and each other, knowing that love really can conquer everything. 6 months after Dorothy May's funeral, Marcus stood in front of a bright blue food truck parked on the same corner where they'd first collided. Miss Dorothy's corner was painted in golden letters across the side, along with her favorite saying, "Love makes a family." Every day at noon, Marcus and James served hot meals to anyone who needed them: homeless veterans, elderly folks on fixed incomes, single mothers stretching their last dollar. The food was free, but the love that came with it was priceless. "Here you go, sir," Marcus said, handing a plate of Dorothy May's famous pancakes to an old man with kind eyes. "Made fresh this morning, just like my mama used to make." James worked beside him, his mechanic's hands now serving soup and sandwiches instead of fixing engines. He'd moved to Detroit permanently, saying he couldn't leave the city where his mother had spent 30 years searching for him. "You know what's funny?" James said to Marcus during a quiet moment. "I spent my whole life angry that I couldn't find her, but if I had found her earlier, I never would have met you." And she needed both of us. The brothers had become inseparable, sharing stories about their mama and keeping her memory alive through every meal they served. Marcus had framed the letter Dorothy May left him, and it hung inside the food truck where everyone could see it. "My dearest son Marcus, you may not have my DNA, but you have my heart. Love isn't about blood, baby. It's about showing up, staying strong, and choosing each other every single day. Take care of people the way you took care of me. That's how you honor a mama's love." Word spread about Miss Dorothy's corner. Local news stations came to film stories. Churches brought volunteers. The mayor even showed up one day, calling Dorothy May a woman who reminded us all what community really means. But the moment that mattered most came on a cold Tuesday morning when a young woman approached the truck with 2 small children clinging to her coat. "I heard about this place," she said quietly. "I heard you feed people who can't afford to eat." "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said, loading a bag with enough food for 3. "What are their names?" "This is Sarah and this is Tommy," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "And I'm Lisa. We've been staying in our car since I lost my job." James handed Tommy a wooden toy truck, one just like the one Dorothy May had carved for her, Michael, so many years ago. "This is for you, little man. And Lisa, you come back here every day at noon. We'll make sure you and your babies eat." As Marcus watched Lisa's children smile for what might have been the first time in weeks, he felt Dorothy May's presence in his heart. She taught him that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who you choose to love, who you choose to serve, and who you refuse to give up on. Miss Dorothy's corner became more than a food truck. It became a movement, a reminder that sometimes the most broken people can become the most beautiful families. Dorothy May Johnson started as a homeless woman, collecting cans on the streets of Detroit, invisible to a world that had forgotten her. But through one moment of unexpected collision, she became the heart of a family that chose love over blood, service over selfishness. Her story reminds us that the most powerful transformations often come from the most unlikely places, and that sometimes the person we least expect to matter becomes the one who changes everything. Marcus and James discovered that family isn't about sharing the same DNA. It's about sharing the same commitment to show up, stay strong, and choose each other every single day. Dorothy May's legacy lives on every time someone serves a meal to a stranger, Every time someone chooses compassion over convenience, every time someone realizes that love really can make any group of people into a family. Now I want to ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you truly saw the people around you who are struggling? When was the last time you chose to love someone who couldn't give you anything in return? Dorothy May spent 30 years searching for family, only to discover that family had been waiting for her to create it all along. What family are you waiting to create? What love are you waiting to give? Stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect person, the perfect situation. Start where you are with what you have, with who's in front of you right now. If this story touched your heart, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss stories that remind you what really matters in life. And hey, click on that video appearing on your screen right now, because we've got more incredible true stories that will make you believe in the power of human connection all over again. Your next dose of hope is just one click away.